Hello, good morning dear students. So in this class, let us continue with the water soluble vitamins, and today let me discuss about the topic vitamin B5 and vitamin B6. The chemical name of vitamin B5 is pantothenic acid. Actually, the word pantos is derived from the Greek, which means everywhere, which means to say this pantothenic acid is present in small quantities in almost all the food we consume, whether it is from the plant origin or animal origin. Because it is present in all the diets or the foods, it is called pantothenic, and of course it has an acidic group in its structure, hence pantothenic acid. So the chemical name of vitamin B5 is pantothenic acid. Coming to the dietary sources, as I told you, it is present in almost all the food sources, and all the common sources of B complex vitamins, they contain this vitamin, like whole grains, fruits and vegetables or green leafy vegetables, liver, kidney, egg, milk and meat. Almost all the diet will contain at least minimum amount of the pantothenic acid. Now coming to the RDA, or the requirement of this vitamin B5 or pantothenic acid, as given by ICMR 2010. ICMR, as I told you, it is the Indian Council of Medical Research. So for children, the RDA, or the requirement, varies from 1.7 to 4 mg per day, and adult men is 5 mg, and for women it varies from 4 to 7 mg. And here when I say the requirement, here for the children, it starts from the infant of 0 months old till 19 years, and adult, that is above 19 years, it starts. And for women, different physiological states of the condition, like including the lactation period and the pregnancy period, it covers this requirement. Now if you look at the biological role of this pantothenic acid or vitamin B5, the coenzyme form of the pantothenic acid is coenzyme A, or in short it is called as CoA. CoA is the coenzyme A, which is the coenzyme form of vitamin B5 or pantothenic acid. And this coenzyme A is required for many of the reactions of the entire metabolic pathways, like synthesis of fatty acids and their incorporation into the membrane phospholipids. You know that the cell membrane is made up of a bilayer phospholipid, and here the fatty acids that has to be incorporated into the phospholipids requires the CoA, or the coenzyme A. Then it is required for the synthesis of cholesterol, the steroid hormones, vitamin A, vitamin D, and almost all the compounds that are formed from the isoprene units. Okay. Then it has a role in TCA cycle also, that is citric acid cycle. Then amino acids, especially the leucine, arginine and methionine. So the synthesis of these amino acids require this coenzyme A, and also the vitamin B12, hemoglobin and cytochrome synthesis. So all these compounds, all these metabolic reactions, they required coenzyme A for the reactions. Now coming to the deficiency symptoms, deficiency of this vitamin is quite rare because it is present in almost all the food. So most of the human diet, it provides around 3 to 10 mg daily from a variety of the natural foods, and this is sufficient to meet the needs or the requirement of the vitamin. So the deficiency cannot be seen, but if it is observed, then it is seen in people with severe malnutrition. So in such people, the symptoms that is observed are irritability, then fatigue and apathy. So the fatigue actually refers to a feeling of tiredness or a continuous exhausted feeling. This is because coenzyme A acts as a coenzyme, or it is required for the energy metabolism. The low coenzyme A levels affect the energy metabolism, hence there will be a feeling of tiredness. That is what is fatigue. Whereas apathy here, because of the fatigue, it's a continuation of the fatigue only, the tiredness only. Whereas because of lack of energy, here a lack of feeling or interest, or you can say a kind of demotivated feeling will be there because of low energy metabolism. So these are irritability, fatigue and apathy due to the lack of coenzyme A, and reduced growth is also observed. Then neurological symptoms. This neurological symptoms, why? Because this coenzyme A is required for the synthesis of a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. Now, the reduced or impaired synthesis of acetylcholine leads to the neurological symptoms, which is seen as numbness in the hands and the feet, and also the muscle cramp. So this is the nervous system is affected because of the absence of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. Then other symptoms include, as usual, the other symptoms of the B complex vitamins like restlessness, sleeplessness, nausea, vomiting and abdominal cramps are generally seen. So this is about the vitamin B5 or pantothenic acid, wherein we have discussed about the dietary sources, the requirements for different age groups, then the biological role of the coenzyme form of this vitamin, that is coenzyme A, and also about the deficiency symptoms. And now let us move on to the next vitamin, that is vitamin B6. Let us know about the next water soluble vitamin, that is vitamin B6, which is also called as pyridoxine. Actually, this vitamin B6 or pyridoxine is a generic term used for a group of vitamins with similar functions. So there are three forms of this vitamin B6 found in our body, and all these three forms are equally active. So they are pyridoxine. This form is predominant in the plant foods, and pyridoxal and pyridoxamine, these two are predominant in the animal food, and all these three forms have a different functional group in them. So this is the structure of those three different forms of the pyridoxine, as I was telling you. They have a same ring structure, that is hydroxymethyl pyridine ring, but the functional group linked to those three forms are different. In case of pyridoxal, that is with the OL, or which is called as pyridoxine, the functional group is OH, whereas in case of pyridoxal with AL ending with the suffix Al, aldehyde is the functional group, and in case of pyridoxamine, amine group is present. So all the three from, as I told you, they are all active in our body, and this vitamin B6 exists in all these three different forms. Okay, now let us know about the RDA, or the recommended dietary allowance, or in other words, the requirement of vitamin B6 or pyridoxine given by ICMR 2010. Here, unlike the other water-soluble B-complex vitamins which we have discussed so far, whose requirement depends on the energy intake, right? But here, the pyridoxine requirement or the vitamin B6 requirement depends on the protein content of the diet. So, depending on how much of protein we are consuming, the pyridoxine requirement also varies. Accordingly, so in children, so remember always when I say children, it starts from the infants till adolescents, and hence it varies from 0.1 mg to 2 mg per day, and in men it is 2 mg per day, and whereas in case of women the requirement is 2 to 2.5 milligrams per day. This is about the requirement of vitamin B6, or in other words pyridoxine. Okay, now coming to the biological role of the pyridoxine or vitamin B6. The coenzyme form of this vitamin is PLP, or pyridoxal phosphate. The coenzyme form of pyridoxine or vitamin B6 is pyridoxal phosphate. And this coenzyme has a role in protein metabolism. So that is why its requirement varies with the protein content of the diet I told you, if you remember. So in protein metabolism, it has a role in almost all the transamination and decarboxylation reaction of the amino acid metabolism. So these are the two important reactions in amino acid metabolism. So the transamination and decarboxylation steps of the amino acid metabolism, it requires PLP as a coenzyme. That is why this pyridoxine has a role in protein metabolism. Then it also has a role in amino acid transport. So it transports the amino acids from the intestine into the circulation. So when you consume the food after digestion from the intestine, it has to be transported into the circulation so that it reaches different parts of the body or different cells for its utilization. So this active transport of the amino acids from the intestine into the circulation is done by the enzyme. This coenzyme PLP or pyridoxine is required for the transport of amino acids, and this is also required for the synthesis of two important amino acids, that is serine and cysteine. So the enzymes that synthesize these two amino acids, they are also PLP dependent enzyme, or they depend on this coenzyme for the synthesis of these amino acids. The synthesis of sphingolipids also requires this PLP or the coenzyme, where the myelin sheath of the nerves of the neuron, that contains a membrane called as a membrane or a sheath, a protective sheath called myelin sheath. Sphingomyelin is a main constituent, and sphingomyelin is nothing but a sphingolipid. So synthesis of sphingolipid also require this PLP. Then the formation of coenzyme A. Just now we were talking about the coenzyme A, which is the coenzyme form of vitamin B5 or the pantothenic acid. This coenzyme A synthesis from the pantothenic acid requires PLP. So PLP is required for the formation of coenzyme A from the pantothenic acid. And also synthesis of hemoglobin depends on the PLP. Here, in case of hemoglobin, you know that it consists of two different parts, that is heme and the globin part. This heme part, synthesis of the heme requires, it's a PLP dependent enzyme. So heme synthesis requires PLP for its formation. Hence, in other words, the synthesis of hemoglobin also requires PLP. So these are some of the important functions of this vitamin B6 or the pyridoxine, whose coenzyme form is nothing but the pyridoxal phosphate or the PLP. Okay, now let us know about the deficiency symptoms of this vitamin B6 or pyridoxine. So before I move on to the deficiency symptoms, let us know why deficiency of the vitamins generally is seen. These are the causes of deficiency. You know that the malnutrition is the main reason for almost all the deficiency disorders seen, right? So when a person is not consuming enough or adequate amount of the diet containing these vitamins, in such people deficiency is observed. And the other reason can be malabsorption. So though you are consuming the food containing these vitamins, if it is not absorbed properly, in such cases also deficiency can be seen. Then in case of pregnant women, this deficiency is generally observed. The vitamin B6 deficiency is seen in pregnancy because you know that in pregnancy the protein requirement will be more, or consumption of the protein will be more. Accordingly, the requirement or the consumption of this vitamin will be more, because this has a role in the protein metabolism, right? So if you are consuming more of the protein and not of this vitamin, then there will be deficiency symptoms that can be observed. And in case of alcoholics, alcoholics also, people consuming heavy drinkers or alcoholic people, then in such people also the deficiency is observed, because alcohol interferes with the absorption of this vitamin pyridoxine. And in some cases, drug-induced deficiencies absorbed for this vitamin, or as a side effect of certain drugs which we are consuming. Say for example, isoniazid. It's a medicine or a drug given for tuberculosis patients. So in such people, that isoniazid or that medicine or the drug that interfere with the absorption of the pyridoxine, and hence pyridoxine deficiency is seen. And another drug called penicillamine. Penicillamine is a drug given to the rheumatoid arthritis patients, and also in case of Wilson disease, a genetic disorder. In such people also, this drug leads to the, it interferes with the absorption of the pyridoxine. Hence, the deficiency is seen. So, as a side effect of certain drugs or drug-induced deficiency is absorbed, then in alcoholics also deficiency of this vitamin can be seen. And especially in pregnancy, the deficiency of vitamin B6 is absorbed because of the consumption or the requirement of protein will be more in pregnancy. And accordingly, if you are not consuming more of this vitamin pyridoxine, deficiency symptoms can be seen in such people. Okay, now after knowing about the causes of deficiency of this vitamin, now let us learn the deficiency symptoms of the vitamin B6 or the pyridoxine. The deficiency leads to a type of anemia called as hypochromic microcytic anemia. Here, as the name itself suggests, the RBC or the red blood cells are smaller in size than their usual size. That is why they are microcytic, it is called. And hypochromic refers to they have a less red color. Less red color, why RBCs will have a less red color? Because they have a less amount of hemoglobin. Now the question is, why less amount of the hemoglobin? Here, as I was discussing about the biological role, if you remember, I told you pyridoxine, the coenzyme form of the pyridoxine PLP, is required for the synthesis of the heme ring present in the hemoglobin, isn't it? Now, if the heme is not properly synthesized, hemoglobin will be less, and because of the lack of hemoglobin, RBCs will have a hypochromic color and they will form a smaller sized cells, RBCs. Okay, why heme is not formed because of the absence here? This is again because heme contains 4 pyrrole ring. If you remember the structure, heme is made up of 4 pyrrole rings, and this parent pyrrole ring requires PLP. Now, if the vitamin is deficient, pyrrole ring will not be formed, and without pyrrole ring, heme cannot be synthesized, and without the heme part, hemoglobin cannot be synthesized. And that is the reason it leads to anemia. And here the type of anemia is hypochromic microcytic anemia. Okay, then it also affects, the deficiency also affects the central nervous system. Why central nervous system? Here, this if you remember, this vitamin is required for the protein metabolism. And in case of the amino acids, there will be an impaired synthesis of the neurotransmitter serotonin and the gamma aminobutyric acid called as GABA. These two are the important neurotransmitters synthesized from the amino acids. Which are those amino acids? Serotonin is synthesized from the amino acid tryptophan, and the GABA is synthesized from the amino acid glutamic acid. Now, if the deficiency of this vitamin affects the amino acid metabolism, which in turn leads to impaired synthesis of these two neurotransmitters, and that is the reason it affects the activity of the brain or the central nervous system, which in turn leads to conditions like hyperirritability, convulsions and seizures. Convulsions and seizures are like they are due to the body muscles that contract and relax rapidly. because of this impaired neurotransmitters, so there will be convulsions, an uncoordinated movement of the muscles or an uncontrolled actions of the body. That is what is called convulsions. And seizures refers to, I mean, in a common term, you can like you can take it as a fits, a condition where there will be a sudden loss of consciousness, and sometimes with vocalization or a calling out, where the eyes, head and the body may turn to one direction. So this is what is called seizure. So body becomes very stiff, or we call it as tonic, followed by jerking of the muscles. Okay, this is seizures due to the impaired synthesis of the neurotransmitters which affect the activity of the brain. Then the general symptoms like sleeplessness and depression is also observed due to the deficiency of the vitamin. Then again, as usual, the dermal lesions or the skin lesions are seen. This again because of a protein metabolism is impaired. And again, in protein, when you say collagen is the main protein of the skin, so the impaired collagen synthesis leads to the dermal lesions or the skin lesions, or you can say the dermatitis. So these are all the deficiency symptoms that is observed. So this was about vitamin B6 or pyridoxine, which is one of the water soluble vitamin. So in this class we have discussed about the dietary sources, requirement, biological role and the deficiency symptoms of vitamin B6. So see you all in the next class. Thank you.